Okay, you can let people in now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I think we're going to give people just a couple more minutes to log on, but we'll get started very shortly. All right, we can get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Kamholz, and I'm the outreach intern for Renew Wisconsin under the MadiSUN program. I'm going to pass it off to my coworker, Sam, in just a few moments for his presentation. But first, I would like to explain just some logistics about the webinar to make sure everything runs smoothly. Sam's presentation will last about 45 minutes with the remaining 10 to 15 minutes for an open question session. If you have a question during the presentation, feel free to use the chat function on the bottom bar or the raise hand function, and we'll be happy to answer any question you may have. We ask you to keep yourself muted, though, to ensure everyone can hear the situation or the presentation, excuse me. We will be recording this and posting it to our events page if you need to rewatch any portion of the presentation. So with that, I will pass it off to Sam to talk about solar.
Thank you, Morgan. And thank you everyone else for joining us today. Really excited that so many of you were able to take the time out of your busy days to talk about sunshine on such a bright and sunny day. As Morgan said, we're going to kind of walk through the presentation. We'll discuss how to go solar, and I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about the agenda today. So hopefully after the seminar is done, you're going to be able to understand everything you need about solar energy. First, we're going to talk about how solar power actually works. Then we're going to talk about reasons to go solar, including the financial reasons. And then lastly, we're going to talk about probably what a lot of folks are here to learn about is the economics and the incentives to going solar as well. And we also are going to, as Morgan said, leave a little bit of time at the end in for questions too. But it's a pretty small group today. So if you do have a question, feel free to either type it into the chat, as Morgan said, or do the raise hand function, and we'll be sure to answer those questions however they come in. If it's about a particular slide, certainly feel free to put your hand up or type something into the chat right away. Morgan will get my attention. If it's a more general question, we'll just kind of hold them all until the end, and then we'll discuss them at that point. So, and I also see one of our installers is going to be on too. So hopefully if you have any technical questions, Chad from Full Spectrum Solar will be able to help you out there as well. So let's get right into it. We're going to discuss how does solar energy actually work. There may be varying levels of understanding about how solar energy works. So I just want to make sure everyone is kind of starting off at the same base point. So we're going to go over a few of the more commonly used terms or terms that might come up here throughout the discussion today. The first term is kilowatt. And when we're going to talk about kilowatts a lot. And when we say kilowatts, basically what we're talking about is the capacity amount of energy, or really just the size of an array. So we might say your home needs a 3 kilowatt array or a 5 kilowatt array or something to that effect. A kilowatt hour is similar, but a little bit different. A kilowatt hour is the amount of energy that's generated or consumed over a period of time. Generally, when we're referencing kilowatt hours, we're talking about how much energy a home consumes, usually over a month or maybe a day or even a year. Or else we're also talking about kilowatt hours in terms of how much energy a solar array produces and how much that will offset for your home as well. So that's a kilowatt hour. A solar cell is part of the solar panel, which there is a picture of here on the left side of the screen. So the solar cells are the smaller square boxes located within the general solar panel. And those are the parts of the solar panel that actually do the work of converting the photons from the sun into electricity. So that's a solar cell. A solar array is a bunch of panels together working in harmony to create electricity for the system. So there can be, for a home, generally it's going to be something like about 10 to 15 to 20 solar panels is going to make up your array. A solar system is all of the components within a solar project. So we're talking about the panels and then some other items as well, which we'll get into here in just a minute. And then the last commonly used term that we're going over is group buy. This is a solar group buy. This is the MadiSUN group buy. And a group buy is, it's sort of a method for helping homeowners purchase solar. So it's a collection of homeowners all banding together at the same time to help drive down the costs and also to make the process a little bit simpler too. And we can discuss the group buy setup in a little bit more details later on as well. Anyways, now that you know some of the common terms, we're going to go into the components of the solar array. Solar is obviously kind of a newer technology. The technology itself, I should say, has actually been around for a while, but a lot of the popularity in solar has definitely happened in the last decade or so. So a lot of people assume that there's a lot of components within these systems, but there really isn't. Outside of some wiring, there's really only two main parts to a solar system, and that is the solar panel, which you probably know, and then the PV inverter, which is probably a little bit lesser known. The inverter, though, is still just as important as the solar panels. So the solar panels themselves obviously do the main work. They convert the sunlight into electricity, but the inverter converts that electricity into usable electricity. So the solar panels make DC or direct current, and the inverter converts that direct current into alternating current, which is what most of our appliances and electronics use throughout the home. These inverters are really great. They come with typically a 12-year warranty. There's an option to extend that warranty as well for a price. And they also connect to the web, so you can monitor the output of your solar array. So you can check that on a desktop computer. There are phone apps as well where you can check that too. So there's lots of really cool technology happening within the inverter. Going back to the solar panel, this is probably what most of you think about when you hear about solar energy, solar arrays. As I said, that converts the electricity, that converts the sunshine into electricity. There's no moving parts, so solar panels are actually comprised of two different layers of silicon usually. And because it's a chemical reaction and there are no moving parts, solar panels typically have a really long lifetime. They're warranted for at least 25 years. But of course, if you own a car or some other appliance or product, typically the product itself lasts for much longer than that. So these solar panels can last for 30, 40, maybe even 50 years because without any moving components or parts to break down, there's really no maintenance either. So that's another really exciting part about solar, is very little upkeep. So now that you know some of the basic components, we're going to talk about how a solar array or a solar system works. And when we talk about solar systems, solar arrays, most of the time, especially when we're talking about homes, we're talking about a grid-tied solar array. It's probably what more than 99% of the solar systems installed in Wisconsin here are. And what that means on a very basic level is that, your home, your solar system is tied into the greater electric grid. There are options to, do battery backups to go off grid, but those systems, those setups cost a lot of money. They also require some major lifestyle changes as well. One of the good things I should say about a grid-tied solar array is you don't have to go through those. It keeps the price pretty low, and it also keeps your lifestyle almost similar. So how does a grid-tied solar array work? How does any solar array work? Well, as you can probably guess, the sunshine hits your solar panels here. Those solar cells, like I said, convert those photons into direct current. The direct current then flows down here, our first arrow, into the inverter. Again, in the inverter, it converts that direct current into alternating current, which then runs into your circuit box and then out into your appliances or your electronics, wherever that electricity is needed. When the sun is not shining, when your array is not producing electricity, you can still take in electricity off the grid. It will come in here through your meter and it will go into your circuit box and into your appliances, just like it does already. So when the sun is not shining at night on extremely cloudy days, when your solar array isn't producing electricity, you're still able to do things like do your dishes, wash your clothes, turn on the TV, things like that. It's a reason why a grid-tied solar array is really great. Another reason why a grid-tied solar array is great is because quite often, especially during the noontime hour like this and in the summertime, your solar array is actually going to be producing more electricity than what your home needs. And at that point, it follows the same first couple of steps. It goes through the solar cells, of course, through your inverter. But when your inverter sees that all of your home's electric needs are being met, it pushes that extra electricity back through the meter and out onto the grid. And then it flows down the street to your neighbor's neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. And your electric meter through the utility will actually dial backwards. And this is really important because it's a way to save quite a lot of money. And also, like I said, still be tied into the grid and still be able to use your home and use all of your appliances as needed. And that concept, that policy of how your meter works is called net metering. So like I said, during the daytime, when your solar array is producing electricity, when all of your home's electric needs are being met, once that array starts producing more electricity than you need, that meter will actually dial backwards. And then at night, when you need to consume electricity, again, it will dial forward just as it always does. The difference is you just have to pay the net of that meter. That's why we call it net metering. So it's really great, like I said, not only because it allows you to continue on with everyday life as normal, but it also allows you to sort of bank that electricity for later. I like to call it rollover electricity, for those of you that remember rollover minutes on a cell phone. So it's a really great way to take electricity and sort of use it for later. And I have an even better visual example of that right here. So this is a graph of an actual working solar array. This home, the home's electricity consumption is indicated in the area here under red. The area in green is where this homeowner's solar array is producing electricity. And the corresponding area in blue, the overlapping area, that is where this home is using that solar electricity produced in real time. So you can kind of eyeball this graph and see that the area in blue is the smallest of the three shaded areas, which means that the amount of electricity that this home is using, the amount of solar electricity that this home is using in real time, is pretty small in comparison to the overall consumption of the home and also how much solar electricity the solar array produces. So essentially what this graph is showing is that, it's showing a few things. First of all, your home electricity use is actually pretty sporadic. See, there's a bunch of spikes here and there. This is probably a water heater or something like that going on, maybe an air conditioner or something like that. But your solar array produces electricity very steadily, especially on days like today. So this is a good visual representation of how net metering basically takes this area in green and then fills in the corresponding areas in red. It does not use, you're not able to consume or make use of the green component of the solar electricity, but from a checkbook account, from a checking standard, your utility bill is able to use all of that electricity. So we're always talking about just offsetting your electric use, either in real time or over the course of a day or a month, or possibly even a year as well. So that is net metering in a nutshell. Net metering is it's a very complicated subject. So definitely, if you have questions, please let us know about that. Each utility has different net metering policies as well, which makes things even more confusing. We can get into that later as well. The last part that I want to talk about when we talk about how solar works is a solar ready home. A lot of you might be wondering, is my home a good fit for solar or not? And these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself. The first sort of characteristic that you want to look at for your roof and whether or not your roof is a good fit for solar is it unshaded? If there are trees or other buildings blocking your sunlight for your roof, that's going to really cut into the amount of electricity that your solar array can generate. So ideally, we want an unshaded roof. The second component that we look at is the age of the roof. Ideally, you want a new roof, a brand new roof. Obviously, that doesn't always happen, but we want a newish roof. If your roof is 10 years old or less, that's probably going to be fine. If your roof is, say, 20 years old or older, you definitely want to think about redoing your roof first. And we say that because given the lifespan of the solar panels, like I said, 25, 35, 45 years, those panels will typically last as long, if not outlast, a standard shingled roof. So the last thing you want to do is have to have those solar panels taken off halfway through the lifetime of the solar project, have a roofer come in and redo the shingles or put a new roof on, and then have the solar panels be reconnected and reattached. It can be done, but those types of acts are going to eat into your return on investment, and it take a little bit longer for you to see a return on your investment. So you want a new roof, you want an unshaded roof. Ideally, you'd like a south-facing roof or a south-ish facing roof. Thankfully, though, now in the last few years, due to the technology advancements of the solar panels and through some of the policy changes in net metering, east and west facing roofs now definitely will generate enough electricity to offset your total needs. So east and west roofs are now okay as well. South facing roof, though, still the best. And then the last point I want to make here is we want an energy efficient home. The cheapest kilowatt hour you can buy is the one you don't ever have to use or have to generate. So you want to do things like make sure all of your light bulbs are LED bulbs, and that your appliances are efficient, and that you have proper insulation and other things like that. So really want to stress that if your home is not very energy efficient, make those upgrades first. Then you are able to buy a smaller array, and your solar payback period will likely be much shorter as well. So that wraps up the first part of our presentation. Are there any questions on how solar works or some of the technical aspects behind solar right now? Okay, if there's not, then I will continue on. So now we're gonna go over why solar makes sense, even in a state like Wisconsin. Anyone that's been through one of our winters definitely knows that we don't get a lot of sunlight in the months of December, January, February, but we do get a lot of sunlight in the summer months and also generally throughout the year as well. So this right here is a map of how much sunlight strikes the earth every day. So as you can probably guess, the areas in orange and red are areas that receive a lot of sunlight. Areas in purple and blue are areas that don't receive as much sunlight. So as you can probably guess, the desert Southwest gets a lot of sun. Areas like the Pacific Northwest, Portland, Seattle, don't get quite as much sun. In Wisconsin here, we're kind of in the middle. We're in the green area, so we definitely get enough sunlight to make solar possible. You might be wondering why Germany is on this map. Germany made a substantial investment in solar about a decade ago. They currently get anywhere from about 5 to 20% of their electricity from solar. they get about 35% total from renewables. Here in Wisconsin, however, we get less than 1% of our total electricity from solar, from the sun. That number is definitely going to be going up here over not just this year, but over the next decade. But definitely we still have a long way to go. The overall theme for this slide is, if Germany can do this with much less sun, all of Germany is actually located further north than Wisconsin, by the way. If Germany can make a substantial amount of their electricity from solar, we definitely can too here in Wisconsin. Solar is also super reliable. I showed that graph before of how steady, the steady supply of electricity that a solar array can generate. But also the panels themselves are really reliable. Most solar panels can withstand up to golf ball size hail. They can also withstand winds, up to hurricane force winds too. And the other weather component that a lot of people in this part of the country are concerned about is snowfall. If we do get a big snowfall, the snow is going to sit on those panels and it's not going to produce electricity in the immediate time. But typically, because as you can see by this image, most of the solar panels are a black or a navy blue color, so they typically are a little bit warmer. They always have a little bit of electricity running through them, so they stay a little bit hot. And of course, they're also almost always installed at an angle. Of course, that usually depends on the slope of your roof, but because they stay warmer, because they're at an angle, typically most of the snow is going to melt and slide off on its own rather quickly. If we get a really big snowstorm, maybe followed by a really harsh cold snap, that snow may stay on your panels for 2, 3, maybe even 4 days. But for the most part, eventually it all will melt and slide off on its own. We definitely don't want to encourage anyone trying to remove the snow from those panels, especially if the panels are up high on a roof, maybe a 2 or 3 story roof. You definitely don't want to go up there in the wintertime and risk not only hurting yourself, but also potentially damaging the panels trying to get the snow off of those. So in short, panels really resilient to a lot of different meteorological phenomena. Solar has also come down substantially in price in the last 10 years. So this is a graph from the Solar Energy Industries Association. It shows the price of solar, which is in yellow here, and where that price has gone in the last decade. As you can see, it's fallen substantially, anywhere from 75 to 90%, depending on the type of solar installation. And a lot of that is due to the amount of solar that's been installed, and that's indicated by the blue bars of this graph. So as we increase our economies of scale, as countries like Germany and China and South Korea and the US and Canada start making solar panels on a mass scale, the overall cost of the materials has gone down quite a bit, and that's helped bring this price curve down. It's also been brought down not only due to the amount of solar that's installed, but also due to the technology too. The solar panels that we're offering with this program are 370 watts each. Just a few years ago, those solar panels that were the same physical size, physical dimensions, would have maybe only been 250 watts or 300 watts or something like that. So that price has gone down a lot due to technology, but even more so due to economies of scale and just installing a lot of solar power over the last 5 to 10 years or so. So not only is it affordable, but it also increases the value of your home as well. This was from a study done by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory out of Colorado. And it showed that solar homes in a given neighborhood would sell faster and for more money than an equivalent home that is not outfitted with solar. So what this basically means is that if you install solar in your neighborhood and you and your neighbor across the street both go to sell your home at the same time, assuming your neighbor's home is in similar age and size and whatnot to your home is going to sell for 20% faster and 17% more than your neighbor's home on average. So that obviously will vary a little bit, but it is a great way, solar is a great way to add value to your home. Another way that solar adds value, not just to your home, but to the overall economy, is through job creation. These jobs obviously cannot be outsourced. We need boots on the ground to both design these systems and install them as well. So by installing a solar array, you're really contributing a lot to the local economy. Both of our solar installers this year are MadiSUN-based firms. Everyone lives in the area here, so it's really a great way to kind of spur the economic portion of our society, especially in times like this. I would be making a big mistake if I didn't, of course, talk about the environmental benefits of solar. That's the reason a lot of people install a solar array these days. So if we look at an average 5 kilowatt solar array, that's about the average size solar array needed for a home in Wisconsin. Over 25 years, that solar array will offset almost 120 tons of CO2, so it prevents a lot of carbon dioxide from going into the air. It also is the equivalent of not driving over 200,000 miles, and it is also equivalent to not burning 14,000 pounds of coal over that 25 years. So definitely some environmental factors to take into account as well when we talk about solar. Another thing I talked about, the driving miles offset is another way people can not only help with the environment, but also save money and drive down that return on investment time of their solar system is by installing an electric vehicle charging station as well and purchasing an electric vehicle. So this is a way we can, if you plan on purchasing an electric vehicle or if you have one already, we can incorporate what sized array might be needed to offset that electricity as well. So not only potentially can your array be offsetting your home's electricity, but it can also be offsetting your the amount of fuel that you need, or it can offset the costs of your fuel every day too. So most solar systems, like I said, not only can produce enough array to charge an electric vehicle, especially overnight, but there are special inverters now too, which means that the direct current that the solar panels produce will go directly into the car. So you don't lose any electricity, any electrons in the switchover process from DC to AC electricity. So another way to not only help with the environment, but also to help with your pocketbook is to drive on sunshine. And then of course, the last point, and this is kind of a bigger one that we'll go into more in detail here in the next couple of minutes, is saving money. Of course, that's kind of reason number one. People want to be able to produce their own electricity, regardless of what side of the political or ideological aisle you're on. A lot of people like the idea of being more self-resilient, certainly like the idea of lowering their electric bills, and also against hedging against rising utility prices too. Most of our examples coming up are actually done without any change in electric rates. Typically, utilities increase those rates at an average of about 1% to 3% each year. So definitely something to take into consideration there as well. I like to tell people that by installing a solar array, you're kind of like buying 25 years of electricity upfront. So reasons to go solar, there are many of them. We don't care which one you choose. Hopefully you choose all of them, so to speak. It works, like I said, even in a state like Wisconsin. It has become more and more affordable. It will increase the value of your home. It'll help with job creation. You can potentially fuel your vehicle, or you can potentially offset your commuting fuel costs. It of course helps with the environment as well, and it can save money too. So a lot of reasons to go solar. Like we said, we don't really care which one you choose. Hopefully you choose a few of them, in fact, but there are many, many reasons out there to go solar. So at this point, I'm going to pause real quick just to give my voice box a rest and see if there are any questions. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions, so I'll just continue on. We're going to get into the economics now, which is, I think, what most people want to know about. We're going to try to save as much time for this section as I could, but let's go into some of the reasons, or some of the economic and incentive information. So I talked a little bit at the start of the presentation about what a group buy is, but I want to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits. So what we do with a group buy is, we get a bunch of homeowners together at the same time. Through that, we're able to drive down material costs, also some other associated costs as well. But in general, the main reason for joining a group buy is it simplifies the process. We select a reputable solar contractor, we negotiate a set price, and we're here to serve sort of as consultants throughout the process. If you have a question, if there's something you don't understand about maybe a proposal or a contract, you're free to call us and we'll help you through everything. The main reason that most folks join a group buy, not only for simplicity, is also for the price. Our prices this year represent about a 6% discount from the average installation price from our two solar installers. Those installers, I should mention right now, are Full Spectrum Solar and Midwest Solar. They're both offering the exact same equipment. So that equipment is for North American made solar panels, the price is $2.93 per watt. For imported panels, the price is $2.88 per watt. The main reason for that price difference is just because the North American manufactured solar panels are a little bit more efficient. The panels are the same size, but the North American panels generate 370 watts each, whereas the imported panels generate, I believe it's 340 watts each. So that's the only real difference there in the price. However, if you buy a, if you install a 5 kilowatt array of North American panels, it's still going to make the same amount of electricity as a 5 kilowatt array using imported panels. So the only difference, like I said, is for the efficiency. Like I said, that amounts to roughly a 6% discount, but if you have a larger home or if you need to install a larger solar array, maybe you're doing an electric vehicle as well, that those large systems, which are 8 kilowatts and above, average out to about a 17% discount. So pretty significant savings as well. But there are other ways to receive additional savings as well. And the first incentive, or the first way of saving more money on these systems, is through the Focus on Energy program. And right now, Focus on Energy program is offering a $200 per kilowatt rebate, essentially, on all newly installed solar systems in 2020. That incentive, however, is capped at around $1,000. So something to keep in mind there. If you're installing a system larger than 5 kilowatts, you're still only going to get about $1,000 rebate from Focus on Energy, unless you happen to live in a rural area. There are some rural zip codes where if you reside in those areas, you can potentially get a bonus as well. There are some requirements, however, in order to qualify for this rebate. Your roof, we talked about this a little bit earlier, needs to be shaded 10% or less. So if you have trees that are blocking your view, you're not going to be able to qualify for that rebate. And also, if your rooftop is oriented in a north fashion, you're not going to be able to qualify for that. So your rooftop, needs to be less than 10% shaded and within 90 degrees of due south. So what that means is it can be facing either due south, or all the way over to due east, or all the way back in the opposite direction to due west. Basically anything but north facing and less than 10% shaded will allow you to qualify for that incentive. Shifting gears a little bit here, the next incentive that I want to discuss with you is the tax credit. That is kind of an area where folks can get a lot of money back on their solar system. Last year, and for several years leading up to last year, that tax credit was at 30%. This year, it started getting reduced. It has been reduced to 26%. Next year, it will get reduced even further, down to 22%. And then unless something changes, unless those tax credits are renewed by Congress, those credits, will go away completely in 2022. So we saw a lot of people, a lot of homeowners especially, installing solar last year because that tax credit was at 30%. This year, like I said, it has been reduced, but 26% still makes up a pretty substantial cost of the total array. So we're seeing a lot of people install this year as well. Next year, probably going to be just as busy, if not busier, because, like I said, 22% still better than nothing. So a lot of folks are going to be installing solar here in the next couple of years. So something to keep in mind there. It's really hard to make up for those tax credits through other discounts. The price of the materials is still falling a little bit, but it's not going to quite fall enough, in my opinion, likely to make up for those tax credits. So something to keep in mind there. One more thing to keep in mind too, with both of these incentives, the tax credits and the focus on energy rebates, both of those incentives come once your system is installed. So for the focus on energy credit, focus on energy rebate, excuse me, once your system is installed, you submit an application, assuming your application is approved, you qualify, then Focus on Energy will issue you a check for however much you qualify for. In terms of the tax credits, what will happen is, in theory, like say you install a solar array right now in August, that tax credit will be applied to in early 2021. So whenever you file your income taxes, you will submit amendment to those taxes, and that's how you will get your tax credits. So that will not, like I said, happen until early 2021. So something to keep in mind there. And also, if you, let's say your tax credit for your solar array amounts to $2,000, but you've only paid in $1,000 to taxes, you'll be able to roll the rest of that money over into next year. So you won't be able to get all $2,000 back this year, but you can do $1,000 this year and then $1,000 next year, or however much you might need. You can continually roll over those tax credits from year to year until your tax appetite, is fulfilled. So something to keep in mind there. If there are more questions on tax credits or on other incentives, certainly happy to talk about those too. Last thing I want to talk about here before we get into our cost exercise is financing. A lot of people assume that you need to have cash on hand in order to purchase these systems. It certainly helps, but it's not completely necessary. So, savings or cash on hand is one way to purchase a solar array. Another way is through a very, very common way that a lot of people use is through a home refinance loan. But there are additional ways too. One way is through the Clean Energy Credit Union, and I think Morgan is going to be able to put up some information on that. Yep, there it is right there. So if you're interested in financing your solar array, that is definitely an option now. And it wasn't always an option in the past, but there are institutions like the Clean Energy Credit Union that will offer solar specific loans. The interest rates on those loans vary depending on your credit score. But there are ways, for you to finance a system with little to no money down. So financial difficulties are now not nearly as much of a deterrence to purchasing a solar array as they once were. So now that we know what our base price is, now that we know of all the incentives that we might be able to qualify for, we can do a cost exercise. So I'm going to take that same hypothetical 5 kilowatt array that we talked about before. If we apply it to our group buy pricing, that 5 kilowatt array works out to a little under $15,000, $14,650. Assuming we qualify for a focus on energy incentive, that will reduce our price by another $1,000. Again, the tax credits have been reduced from 30% down to 26%, but if we apply that, that's an additional almost $3,600 off, and that leaves us with an out-of-pocket cost of a little over $10,000. So a pretty substantial decrease in the overall price. Again, I want to point out, whether you're paying cash or whether you're financing the system, you will have to pay that $14,000 sort of upfront, is what I like to say. The discounts come afterwards once the solar is installed. So something to keep in mind there. If maybe you're trying to save up for a solar array, you are going to have to save up for the total cost, and then those discounts will be applied later. So anyway, this results in over a 30% discount, so a pretty substantial drop in price. And now that we know our out-of-pocket cost, and also we know how much energy our solar array is going to produce, we can calculate the value of that energy. So again, if we take that hypothetical 5 kilowatt solar array. In Wisconsin, we typically receive about 1,500 hours of production time or basically sunlight each year. That number will vary, of course, year to year, depending on weather patterns and other things like that. But if we multiply, like I said, that 5 kilowatt array times our average 1,500 hours, we get about 7,500 kilowatt hours each year of electricity production. And if we know how much kilowatt hours our solar array on average is going to make throughout the year, we can also figure out, based on our utility prices, how much energy that is going to offset, or how much of our utility bill that it's going to offset. So if you are on a municipal utility, Sun Prairie, Wanakee, something like that, your electricity rates are around 10 cents per kilowatt hour. If you are on one of those utilities, your array is going to offset, your hypothetical 5 kilowatt array is going to offset about $750 per year. If you're an Alliant customer, your electricity rates are around 12 cents per kilowatt hour. That equates to an $880 offset each year. And if you're an MG&E customer, which I assume most of us are, your rates are 13.6 cents per kilowatt hour. You're going to save about $1,000 per year in offset electricity bills. So now that we know that, we just take our $1,000 divided by $10,000, which is our out-of-pocket cost, and we get a return on investment of about 10 years. Obviously, this number is, it varies quite a bit. It varies everything from the customer, which utility they're on, to the type of year we get, how much sunshine, things like that. It also depends on how you use your electricity as well. A lot of folks, unfortunately, once they get solar installed, they think they are given a free pass to consume as much electricity as possible. That's why I hinted earlier that you really do need an energy efficient home. Those kilowatt hours that you don't use are the cheapest ones of all. So typically, return on investments, depending on all of those factors, can vary from about 7 to 11 or 12 years. But again, 10 years is a pretty safe bet for most homes. And if we subtract, 10 years by our 30+ year lifespan, that equates to about $20,000 in total savings over the lifespan of the solar system. So some very substantial savings to be had here by installing a solar array. And again, that $20,000 figure, $20,000 plus figure, assumes no utility rate hikes whatsoever, which is almost completely unheard of. So definitely some big money to be saved there, which is why, again, so many people are installing solar. It's not just for the environmental benefits anymore. It's just as much for the economic benefits. So that's sort of, that brings us to a closing or steps to installing. So if you are interested in solar, which hopefully most of you are, the first step is to sign up if you haven't done that already. Go to www.madisunsolar.com/I'm interested. You can access that on the main MadiSUNsolar.com page. There's a small rectangular box in the top right-hand corner. You just click on that box, fill out your information, and then we will evaluate your home. After that, we will give you a phone call. We'll discuss your home, your roof orientation, your roof slope, shading, things like that, how much energy your home uses, and then we can make estimates of system size and cost and rebates based on that information that you provide us. And basically what this will do is it will give you sort of a heads up as to how much your solar array is going to cost, if this really seems like a good investment for you or not. And if it does or if it doesn't, we can make recommendations, or we can possibly give you some alternatives as well. If it does look good, if everything seems great, if everyone is interested, what we do after that point is we schedule a site assessment. That's when our solar contractors come out and do a more thorough, more in-depth on-site evaluation of your roof, more thorough and in-depth evaluation of your electric use, and some of the other things like your panel, your electrical panel, and things like that. After that, one of our solar contractors will issue you a proposal. This will detail the specific size and the type of the array, the type of panels that are going to be used, the type of inverter that's going to be used, things like that. If that looks good, that proposal then turns into a contract. And then once your contract is signed, your solar array gets installed. This entire process can take a month, maybe 2 months, maybe longer, maybe shorter. But the actual construction of the solar array, ironically, is usually only a day, maybe 2 days at the most, depending on weather and some other things, assuming unforeseen issues don't come up. So the entire process does take a little bit of time, which is why it's a good idea to get started earlier in the year. But that being said, the construction itself goes in really quick. These systems are really great, really streamlined, which is why our installers are able to offer such a low price and such good quality service as well. They do lots and lots of these installations per year, which is why they are so good at it, and we are able to offer such a great price. So with that said, I'm going to open up the floor to any questions first. I just want to see Brent from Full Spectrum, sorry, Brent, is on. Brent, if you want to add anything else, please do so right now. Let's see if I can unmute Brent here.
Okay, yes, I'm unmuted.
There you go.
No, yeah,
okay, thanks.
Covered everything pretty well.
Okay, great, thanks. So we'll open up the floor now to any questions, if there are any. We can go over more items in detail, and my email address is there as well in case anyone wants to go over anything. Brent, are there any like typical questions that you get from homeowners that maybe I didn't already touch on?
No, you touched on a lot of them. Some of the things are a little bit specific to like their individual electrical system, their electrical panel, kind of placement of the inverter, but that we kind of have to be on site and looking at your specific house in order to have a little bit more of a discussion.
Okay, and what is the current wait time right now? Like say someone was just getting started, they're just signing up today. From start to finish, what would you say is maybe about the time frame that they're looking at?
Yep, I think if they talk to you, I think you're setting people up for a site assessment within a week or 2 weeks. And then when we do the site assessment, we usually get a proposal back in about a week. And then if you decide you want to contract, our lead time right now is around 1.5 months. So we're telling people right now about a September install, maybe beginning of October.
Great. So they can still get it in before the end of the year then and take advantage of those tax credits is what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's usually around, if people make a decision in the beginning of October, that we tell people we can't guarantee that we'll get it in this year.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Were those prices that you were going through, were those based on the group buy? I mean, how is that different than what you were just explaining?
Yep. So like I said, depending on which types of panels you choose, your price would be $2.93 per watt or $2.88 per watt. So if I go back to our cost exercise here, let me just do this real quick. So this price right here, that's based on the $2.93 per watt price. No. And that includes everything from your site assessment to the materials and the labor, et cetera.
And that's not what I meant. Early on in the presentation, you were talking about a group buy where a group of people in the same, I assume, neighborhood are banding together to get better pricing. Is this pricing the group buy pricing? Or
yes, this is the group buy pricing.
Okay,
yep.
I see.
Yeah, and it represents, like I said, about a 6% discount from Full Spectrum's normal prices.
Okay, I think I'm slowly catching on here. Sorry. So
no, that's fine.
So you're organizing the group or whatever. So if we're going through you, that is the group.
Yep, this is the group. So the group is it's across all of MadiSUN, and actually even in outlying areas of Madison, like Fitchburg or Sun Prairie or places like that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm in Fitchburg, which is why I was trying to figure this out. Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah. Fitchburg is definitely still, would definitely still qualify for the group buy pricing.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, looks like we have another question that came in too. Do you anticipate any extensions of the federal tax credit in the coming years? That's a tricky question because I'm a little bit of a pessimist, so I certainly don't anticipate those tax credits being extended, but it's certainly a possibility. You know, this is an election year. It's certainly things can change. I believe there was a bill on the House floor that did include an extension of those credits, but I don't believe that it got taken up by the Senate. But I'm not our policy expert, unfortunately, in the office, so I can't say for sure. What we do know is that those tax credits right now are at 26% at least, and will continue on, like I said, at 22% for next year before they go away completely. So I like to say that, you know, we know what it's like right now, but we don't necessarily know what those tax credits are going to look like in the future. So definitely a good idea to think about installing either this year or next year.
Yep, I've seen from like solar industry newsletters that they're pushing for it to be extended. They've been pushing for it for the last couple of years, particularly as part of the stimulus with COVID response. They've also tried to put it in there to kind of help the economy move and create jobs. So there's definitely quite a bit of effort to extend that, but that's also a question of what the political will there is for in Washington.
Yeah, there's certainly some efforts being made. You know, we're obviously, you know, at Renew, we're really hopeful that that does happen. But it's just, again, at this point, I don't want to say, oh yeah, they're probably going to be extended. You should maybe wait because there's definitely no guarantee of those tax credits being extended right now. But again, we certainly hope that they do, and we also are going to work as much as we can in our capacity at Renew to make that possible. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I think everyone wants to get out and enjoy the sunshine. Okay. All right, whoops. Well, I'm just gonna leave my email address up here then in case people do have questions later on. If you're like me, you always think of a question, you know, 10 minutes after a presentation is over, or maybe later on tonight. Or something like that. So there's my email address. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have later on, either about the group by itself or about solar in general. But unless there are if there are no more questions, then I'm just going to say, just going to thank everyone again for joining us today. Thanks to Brent as well and the rest of the team at Full Spectrum for helping us out and for answering the technical questions. And just going to say thank you and take care.
Thank you. Good presentation. Have a good day.
Thank you.